Today's daf is Masechta Kiddushin Daf Lamed Gimel. We begin on Daf Lamed Beis just before the lines get wider. Tanur Rabbanan, the rabbis taught. Tanur Rabbanan. We're going to discuss this pasuk. The pasuk says Bipnei Seva Takim. The pasuk in Parshas Kedoshim requires you to get up and stand up for somebody who's elderly. V'hadarta, and you should show this word. V'hadarta is a little strange word. V'hadarta. The v'hadarta means you should show deference, pnei zakein, in front of the presence of somebody who's old. So if you raise him lekecha, and you should fear your God, ani Hashem, I am the Eibishter. So it seems to say the same thing in two different forms. In front of the presence of an old person, you should get up, v'hadarta, and show deference, pnei zakein, in the presence of an old person. So we have to explain this pasuk. Tarabani, Mipnei Seva talking, you have to get up for an old person. Yochal, I would have thought, I feel as Mipnei Zaken Ashmai, even for an old person who is not so intelligent and could be a Balavera. Talmud Loima, so the pasuk says Zakein. You should get up for an old person. The Ein Zakein, So somebody who is not intelligent and even somebody who is wicked. In other words, not wicked per se, but he is somebody who does averis. So I would think such a person you're required to stand up for. Talmud Loima, the pasuk says zakein. It's why does the Torah changes and uses two forms to describe the old person? One is seva and the other is zakein. The ain zakein, the word zakein elachacham. Zakein means somebody who's intelligent. Shunema, the pasuk says, "Esvali shivin ish meziknei Yisrael." And in that context, the word zakein refers to somebody who is intelligent, as Rashi explains, because it says over there, "Shidatahim ziknei ha'am v'shoitrav." You have to know that they're gedolim and chachamim. So, because that on that context, the word zakein means somebody who is somewhat learned. So, also in the context of getting up. And the pasuk says, "They say talking about darta pnei zakein," refers to somebody who is learned. So, according to the Tanna Kama, it seems that you need to have both learned and he's elderly. Rabbi Yossi Aglila says, "Ein zakein el misha kana chachma." The word zakein means somebody who acquired. It's like a abbreviated word. Zeh kana, he acquired. Now you can't acquire anything worthwhile only if it's only anything that you own is not really yours, but something intelligence, nobody can take that away from you. So that's what the Torah is referring to as zeh kana chachma. Shenema Hashem kana reishes darkai. So now, if the word zakein means somebody who acquired wisdom, it seems, according to Rabbi Yossi Aglili, as the Gemara is going to explain in a little while, that it means even if he's not elderly, even if it's somebody who is just a Talmud Chacham, you have to stand up for that person. Says the Brisa, continues. I would have thought, even if you see him from a far distance, you would have to get up for him. Talmud Loima takum v'hadarta. You show deference in a place where you get up, when it's a place you could show deference to him. And I didn't say get up, only where is evident that is you're showing respect for that person. And that's only if he comes into your four amas. If he's far away, a block away, then you don't have to get up for him. Yochel Yahadrenu b'mamayin. I would thought that Yahadrenu means v'hadarta pnei zakein. You have to show respect by giving him money. Talmud Loima, the pasuk says, "Takum v'hadarta." You get up and show respect. Ma'akim Hashem b'chachsaron kis. Just like when the first part of the pasuk, "They seva takim," means obviously to get up doesn't cost you any money. Av hider. So the end of the pasuk when it says v'hadarta pnei zakein, it's talking about when it's referencing something that there is no ein b'chasaron kis. It doesn't cost you anything. Yochel, I would have thought I would have thought that you have to stand up for the old person in the bathroom or the bathhouse. Talmud Loima takum v'hadarta. Torah says takum v'hadarta. Get up and show respect. You don't have to get up for him only if you're in a place that it is a respectful place. In a bathroom, basically it's not a respectful place, and therefore you don't have to get up for the zakein in that in that area, in the Beis HaKisei, Beis HaMerchatz. Yochel, I would have thought, I would have thought that a person should be allowed to close his eyes and not to pretend that you don't see him. If the Zaken walked into your face, you just close your eyes. You don't have to get up. Talmud Bavli Daf Yomi. You should get up, and then the Torah says you should fear your God. Dover hamasur lalev. It's something that is given over to the heart. Nobody knows what's going on in your heart. That's why the Torah says you should fear your God. This part of the Bryce needs explanation, and the Gemara is going to explain what it means. But basically, it means that even before you see the Chacham coming, you just close your eyes, pretend that you're not going to see him. And then when he passed you, they're going to ask you, why didn't you get up? You say, I didn't see him. I was looking the other direction. So only God knows what's in your thoughts. And therefore, the Torah specifies that you should fear your God and don't pretend that you don't see him. Shimon ben Elazar says, how do I know an older person should not bother people and walk directly in front of people so that they get up for him? And in other words, that if there's another way around, he should try to go in another route. That the old person also has to fear God, not to trouble the tzibur to get up for him unnecessarily. Isi ben Yehuda said that they say talking. I feel it called Seva Masha. Isi ben Yehuda is the third opinion, and he holds that no matter what, even if it's not if it's an old person, even if it's somebody that is not learned in Torah or anything, you still have to get up for that person. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yosef Glili Tanakama. Rabbi Yosef Glili seems to say, like the Tanakama, that for an old person you have to get up. So the Gemara says, Ike Benayo, the difference is Yanik B'chakim. If it's a young person, but he's very, very learned. Tanakama Sava Yanik B'chakim Loy. It has to be both an old person and somebody who is learned. But if he's just a young person and learned, you don't have to get up for them. Rabbi Yosef Glili holds even somebody who is young and learned, you have to get up for them. Why? My time with Rabbi Yosef Glili. How did Rabbi Yosef Glili see this in the pasuk? Amalach, he said he will tell the Tanakama, if you're going to think like the Tanakama that you only have to get up for an old person. So in Kain Nichta Rachmana, Seva Zaken talking about Darta, because Seva is another way to say Zaken, an old person. So let's say Mipnei Seva, someone who is elderly, Zaken is somebody who is learned. That's the person you have to get up and show respect. But my Shna, the Palginu Rachmana. Why did the pasuk put it into two different parts? It says Mipnei. What does the pasuk say? Mipnei Seva Takim. That's one part, and then the pasuk says V'darta Pnei Zaken, and that you should show respect to the Zaken. So this Zaken doesn't mean like we normally translate Zaken as an elderly person, but Zaken here means it's a euphemism for somebody who acquired wisdom. The high love, high Seva is not Zaken, and Zaken is not Seva. Shema Mina. From here, the pasuk we can derive that the pasuk refers to afil yanik v'chakim, even somebody who's young and learned. That's the person you have to get up for. Says the Gemara of Tanakama. Why didn't the Tanakama learn like Rabbi Yossi Haglili? And since Gemara Mishum Deboyle Mismach Zaken V'Yeresa, the Torah wanted to put the word Zaken next to the word Yeresa. That's why it didn't put the word Zaken over here by right next to Nei Seva. It wanted to put the Zaken next to V'Yeresa. And what do you learn from that? That even the Zaken has to have fear of God, not to cause people to get up for him unnecessarily, like we just saw Rav Shimon ben Elazar says. Zaken V'Yeresa. Tanakama my Tama. Why does the Tanakama not learn like Rabbi Yosef Glili? Rabbi Yosef Glili. If Rabbi Yosef Glili was totally correct that Seva and Zaken are two different people, in Kei Nichtei Rachmana, we go to page Lama Gimel. Mipnei Seva Takim v'Hadarta. Mipnei Seva Takim v'Hadarta. It should say Seva. Just say use one person. Mipnei Seva Takim v'Hadarta, or Takim v'Hadarta Pnei Zaken. Right? That it should say both. Mipnei Seva Takim v'Hadarta Pnei Zaken. Because if it's talking about two different people, then use both Takim and Hadarta. Get up and show respect. get up and show respect for the learned person. Get up and show respect for the elderly person, because you're saying there's two different people in the pasuk. Midlok siv hachi, since the Torah did not write this, so it must be referring to one person. So again, so the machlekes between Rabbanan and Rabbi Yosef Glili is how to learn this pasuk. Rabbi Yosef Glili says it's referring to two different people. Get up for an elderly person, for dar to pnei zakein, and show respect for somebody who's younger, presumably by getting up for that person. And Hanakama says no, it's one pasuk. It's talking about one person. The elderly person you should get up for only if that elderly person was somebody that is learned. Amamar, we learned previously in the Brisa, Yochel Yadrena B'Mamim. I would have thought that you have to honor him and show respect with money, because the word hider means like you pay for an esrog, hider, or like, or within the context of Chumash, when the Torah uses the word Yadrenu, it means something that's going to cost you money. Talmud Bavli Daf Yomi. You should get up. The Torah says, get up and show respect. So it's a juxtaposition between getting up, which getting up doesn't cost you any money. So also showing respect is the Torah didn't want it to cost you any money. So the kima less by chisaron kiss. What do you mean? Every time you get up doesn't cost you money. Let's say you're in the middle of a job, making stringing pearls. While you're doing the job, you have to stop what you're doing and get up and interrupt your work. So sometimes getting up costs you money because you're going to interrupt your work, and the Torah requires you to do that. So how do you know that kima is automatic and always in a situation getting up for somebody doesn't cost you money? Sometimes if you're in the middle of your job, it does cost you money. Ella, the opposite is true. Akash kima lehidar. You compare getting up to showing respect. Mahidar, the word hidar means paying for something. She'ein ba bittul, it doesn't refer to interrupting your work. Af kima she'ein ba bittul. So also when the Torah wrote kima, it means something that you're not going to interrupt your work. So now that we know that kima means don't interrupt your work, getting up means don't interrupt your work, we go the reverse. We go the opposite way. Now we'll compare, juxtapose, showing respect to getting up. The only type of possible loss is interrupting your work, but we already said that the kima does not refer to interrupting your work. So ma kima shein b'chasaron kis. So therefore, just like every kima has no missing, it doesn't cost you any money. Af hidur shein b'chasaron kis. So also hidur means that it doesn't cost you any money. So why did the Torah write you should show respect? Hidur means always costing you money. So why did the Torah write hidur? So the Torah wanted to teach you that the only time you should get up for the old person is only if it's in a place of hidur, of something that costs money, like something like a nice place, like a house, but or a shul, but not in a beis hakisei or beis hamercha. It's in a bathhouse. So Mekan Amru, from here the Chachamim derived. If you're working for somebody else and that other person your boss is paying you, so then the workers are not allowed to get up, even if a Talmud Chacham passes by, because by doing so they're interrupting the work and it's costing money. Says the Gemara of the law, you don't have to get up when a Talmud Chacham passes. But Tanan, we learned in the Mishnah, when the people who brought Bikurim were on their way to Yerushalayim, to the base of Migdash, to drop off their Bikurim, the Mishnah in Bikurim says that anybody who is working for somebody else would stand up and ask how they're doing, and would say to them, you are my brothers from such and such a place, welcome. So you see that even for, I guess, sometimes even a worker is required to stand up. And we see that in the Mishnayos when the people from other cities would pass by your city on their way to Jerusalem to bring Bikurim, you would have to get up even if you're working for somebody else. So how do you reconcile that for a Talmud Chacham? The Gemara just said that if a Talmud Chacham passes you and you're working for somebody else, you don't have to get up. Rabbi Yochanan explained, for those that were bringing Bikurim, you have to stand up. and because of in front of a Talmud Chacham, you don't have to stand up. If a Talmud Chacham passes, you don't have to get up. So now what's the difference? Why for people of Bikurim, you had to get up? You had to stand up. How beloved doing a mitzvah in its time, that since mitzvah Bikurim is such a unique mitzvah, then that was the only exception, that even if you're working for somebody else, you're required to get up for those that are on their way carrying their Bikurim baskets to the Beis HaMikdash. Because that's what Rabbi Yochanan meant. For a Talmud Chacham, you don't have to get up, because that's not an unusual sight. But to see somebody bringing Bikurim, there you would have to interrupt your work and stand up. So that's what Rabbi Yossi Bar Oven said, that the reason why they stood up is because chaviva mitzvah b'shata. It's beloved when people are doing a mitzvah in the right time. And so you see people doing the mitzvah at this particular time, which is the time of bringing Bikurim, and it's not a common thing. It's not a common occurrence. Therefore, they allowed you to interrupt your work and stand up. So the Gemara says not true. Maybe since Bikurim was such a mitzvah that people were not careful in doing, and if they saw that people were not standing up for them, and then people are just ignoring them, and they just worked so hard to come from another part of Israel to bring Bikurim to the Beis HaMikdash. If you don't show them enough respect, they're not going to come anymore. They're going to say, it's such a small mitzvah, why should I bother with it? So Vidilma Shana Hasim, only if Bikurim is different. It's not just any mitzvah b'shatel. It's only Bikurim that required you to get up. You're causing a stumbling block for them in the future. In the future, people are going to be hesitant to bring Bikurim because they see how little respect is shown for somebody who brings Bikurim. So we make such a big deal for these people that normally a worker is not supposed to interrupt his work and stand up for somebody. But if you see somebody bringing Bikurim, we required you to stand up. But for sure, not for a Talmud Chacham. If you're in the middle of working for somebody and a Talmud Chacham passes you, you don't have to get up. Amamar, we learned previously. You have to stand up in front of the rabbi in the bathroom or the Beis HaMerchatz or the bathhouse. You don't have to stand up for somebody. You don't have to stand up for the rabbi in the Beis HaKisei or the bathhouse. Rav Chia was sitting in the bathhouse. Rab Shimon Rabbi and passed by in front of him. Rab Shimon, the son of Rabbeinu HaKadosh, and Rav Chia did not get up for him. And Rab Shimon was very upset. Why is Rab Chia not getting up? And he's told his father, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, I taught him 2/5 of Sefer Tehillim, and he didn't get up for me. So we see one story where the expectation was that even though the rabbi was in the Beis HaMerchatz, the bathhouse, he expected the student to get up for him. So another story is Bar Kapara of Amrilei Shmuel Bar Yosi. Bar Kapara, and some say Reb Shmuel Bar Yosi, Haviyasa Bei Maschusa. They were sitting in the bathhouse. So let's say Bar Kapara was sitting in the bathhouse. Al Ba'azar Reb Shimon Rebbe like Kamekame. Passed by before him is again Reb Shimon bar Rebbe, and he didn't stand up for him. Reb Shimon bar Rebbe was the rabbi and teacher of Bar Kapara. And Reb Shimon bar Rebbe was upset. And he told his father, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, I taught him 2/3 of Taras Kahanim. I taught him 2/3 of the Chumash Parshas Vayikra with the Medrash and the Halacha and the Agadis, 2/3 of a third. And I'm his teacher, and this Bar Kapara is not getting up for me. So Ba'amalai and Rebbe said to his son, Shema Behain Yoshev Mahar. Maybe they were thinking about the teachings that you just taught them, and therefore their minds were occupied, and that's why they didn't get up for you. So they could have been thinking about something else, but Rebbe knew, because he's has Ruach HaKodesh, he knew that they were probably thinking about the teachings that Rab Shimon bar Rebbe was teaching them. And therefore, he was telling his son, don't be upset they didn't get up for you. They were thinking and learning, and that's why they didn't get up for you. So after you see these stories, Tama, the Behen, Yoshev, Mahara, that the reason why they didn't have to get up, they weren't responsible for getting up because they were thinking and learning. But if it wasn't for that, lie, that we wouldn't give them any excuse, and they would have to stand up, even though they were in a Beis HaMerchatz. So you just told me that if you're in a Beis HaMerchatz, you don't have to get up for your teacher, and here we see that the expectation is that you should get up for your teacher in the Beis HaMerchatz. And so the Gemara, like Kasha, is not difficult. If you're in the inner chamber where everybody is undressed, you don't have to get up for the teacher. But if you're in the outer chamber of the where everybody is partially dressed of the bathhouse, then you're expected to get up, because that is not considered an unrespectful place. There are two chambers in the ancient bathhouse. The inner chamber where everybody was totally undressed, certainly you don't have to get up in that area. But in the outer chamber, in the outer rooms, then where people are partially dressed, then the expectation is that even for your rabbi, you have to get up. It must make sense to learn this way, because how are they learning in Torah? It must be that they were in the outer chambers, because once you're in that inner chamber where everybody's undressed, you're not allowed to learn. You're not allowed to even think about Torah. You're allowed to think about learning in any area, in any place, except in the bathhouse where everybody's undressed, or the bathroom. So the fact that the story implies that these people thinking and learning, it must mean they went in the outer chamber of the bathroom where people are partially dressed. So the Gemara answers a fascinating answer, that maybe they were in the inner chamber where everybody's totally undressed, and yet the Bar Kapara was thinking and learning because he couldn't help himself. If your mind keeps flashing and thinking of the Torah, even though and you can't stop it, we don't fault you for thinking and learning, even if it's in the inner chamber. Maybe I would think that if the rabbi passes in front of you, that you're allowed to close your eyes and pretend you didn't see. 1 second. Does the Torah deal with people who are evil, that you close your eyes and you don't want to see the rabbi if he's in front of you and you have the obligation to stand up? How could you close your eyes and not stand up? Ella, the pshat of the meaning of the brisa is Yachol. I would have thought I would have thought that, let's say the rabbi is down the block and he's on the way towards you. I would think you could close your eyes before he comes into your 4 amas. The chimot is man chiyuvai, so that when he comes into your where the obligation is for you to stand up, you pretend you don't see him. The kamakame, that you should get up for him. So I might think that you'll pretend you see him far away. He doesn't know that that you don't see him, that you see him, and then you close your eyes. So by the time he goes in front of you, you can always have an excuse that the reason why you didn't get up is because you didn't see him. So I would think that a person could do that, and that's okay. Talmud Bavli You should get up and think about this mitzvah and fear God. That means God knows what's in your thought. It's a good Rashi for Erev Rosh Hashanah. The Torah is telling you should be afraid of your Creator. Hayadeya, who knows not only what you do, but what you're thinking about. You're thinking of strategies lihipater, to exempt yourself from the mitzvahs. Tana, we learned in the brayso. What is getting up and showing respect? If it's in your 4 amas. If he's in the 4 amas, then you have to require to get up for the old person. Amar Abaya said, Loi Amram, it didn't say that you have to get up for an old person. Ella barabai she'ena muvhak. If you're not your primary teacher. In other words, if you're a person that's more learned and more older than that person, you don't have to get up for that person. But if it's your teacher, even if you are greater than that person, you are required to get up. And in that case, there's a shir of Dalar Amas, even if it's not your primary teacher, that as long as that person walked into your Dalar Amas, you're required to get up. If it's your primary teacher, it's the one that taught you most of your learning, then you have to, for the respect of the fear of Torah, that even if he's down the block and he's not in your Dalar Amas, you still have to get up. And the Gemara brings 2 examples of this. Rav Yosef was Abaya's main teacher. And as soon as Abaya saw just the ear of the donkey of Rav Yosef, right? Maybe you could see that ear from quite of a distance. Havakoim, Abaya would get up. Abaya, the Gemara says a story. Abaya Havarocha Chamora. Abaya was riding on a donkey. The Komaski Aguda de Nahar Sagi. He was walking on the banks of this river called Sagya. Yosef Rabasharshi Rabbana Be'idachkisi. Rabasharshi and other rabbis and other students were sitting on the other side of the river. They're like, come Mikame. Now, and they didn't get up for Abaya. Now, Abaya and the distance between them was much more than Dalar Amis. Amalei. So Rabbi is called out to them, why aren't you getting up for me? Am I not your primary teacher? Amrulei. So they told him, we didn't see you coming. So they apologized. So we see that even for a primary teacher, it's the Dalar Amish here was not said. Even if it's down the block or far away, you still have to get up for your primary teacher. How do I know for an old person he should not try to get people to stand up for him? Even the elderly should be afraid of God and afraid of the tzibur. Amar Abaya explained, Naktinim, this is the halacha. The imakif, if the old person, the Talmud Chacham goes in a circuitous route. In other words, he doesn't go in front of the people. He tries to avoid them, so to not bother them to get up for him. Chaya, he's going to have a long life. Abaya makif, Rab Zera makif. Abaya would take a longer route. And Rab Zera also would take a longer route in order not to cause the tzibur to get up for them. Says the Gemara, Ravina Havi Yosef Kamed Rav Yirmiyah V'Difte. Ravina was sitting in front of Rav Yirmiyah from Difti. Chalaf lahu gavre kamei v'lo michsereshi. The Gemara says that a person passed by in front of Rav Yirmiyah, I guess, and Ravina was right there, and the guy was not having his head covered. Now, walking by the great Rav Yirmiyah and not having your head covered is a sign of disrespect. Amar, so Rav Yirmiyah commented to Ravina, Kamachotzev Hai Gavra, how brazen is this person? Why did he put a yarmulke when he sees me? So Ravina tried to melamed zchus, to say something for his favor of that person. He said, Dilma mimasa mechasya. Maybe he's from a place called Mochsa Mechasya, which is a place of a lot of Talmidei Chachamim, the Lakewood of its time, and the Gisei Beit Rabbanan. He was so used to being around rabbis, so he didn't. He wasn't used to putting on a yarmulke, because he comes from a place where everybody's a rabbi, and he's so used to it. So he kept his head uncovered as he passed by. Isi ben Yehuda Aimer. Isi ben Yehuda's opinion is talking. No matter who, an old person. Even any old person, if perhaps even a goy who's an old person, the Torah is requiring you to get up. Halacha is like Isa ben Yehuda. No matter what, who the old person is, no matter what religion, race, or whatever, you have to get up. Says the Gemara, an example. Rabbi Yochanan used to get up for these old goyim. That's basically what it is. Amar, he would say, the reason why I'm getting up for old people, these old people, kama harpaski adu adlai dahani, they must have how much life experience has experienced these old people, and they probably saw a lot of miracles as well, and therefore somebody like that, and God kept them around. So for old, so they must be somebody special. Rava make him like a guy. For a guy, he wouldn't get up, but he would show some deference and some like movement as if he's getting up, because they were old people. And Rava did not get up for them because Rava was a Talmud Chacham, and we learned before that a Talmud Chacham shouldn't so easily forego the honor that he should have for himself because of the Torah that he learned. Abaya would give his hand to old people to support them. Rava, that if they, let's say the old person needed to help cross the street, Abai would offer his hand to support them, to help them. But Rava didn't do it himself. Again, Rava felt that it would be a degradation of his Talmudic honor. So Mishadeh Shluchi, he would send messengers to help the old person and support the old person. Says the Gemara, Rab Nachman was somebody who had like an escort of what we call, let's say, a Secret Service, or whatever it was, because he was a son-in-law of the president and the Av Bezdin, and therefore he didn't himself support old people, but when he saw an old person that needed help, Mishad Gazoy, he would send some of his officers to help the person. Omar, he said, the reason why I'm not going myself, Ilaf Torah, if I didn't have this Torah, how many Nachman, the son of Abba, I guess his father's name was Abba, or he didn't want to say his father's name, are in the street. In other words, I can't so easily forego the Torah and just moichel it and do what any commoner could do, is help an old person. But I care for the old people, and therefore I'm sending some of the people that escort me to provide assistance for that old person. Bar continues, Omer Rab Ivai, Omer Rav Yanai. Rab Ivai said in the name of Rav Yanai, we go to Lamed Gimel Lamed Beis, Ein Talmud Chacham Rashoy Lamed B'nei Rabbi El Shachas V'Arvis. For your rabbi, you don't have to get up for him only twice a day, once in the morning and once at night. And so even if you see him other times during the day, you don't have to get up, just twice, once in the morning, once in the evening. Why? So his honor shouldn't be more than the honor that you give God. Since we pray twice a day, in the morning and the evening, and therefore we're getting up to God for God twice a day. So we get up for our rabbi twice a day, but we're not going to get up for our rabbi 3 times or 4 times during the day. Says Gemara Meisvei, I'll ask you a question. Rav Shimon Elazar says, how do I know that an old person should not bother the people to get up for him? He should try to avoid people so that they don't have to get up for him. If you're going to say shachas v'alov that the people's obligation is only twice a day, just once in the morning, once in the evening, it's their obligation. Why shouldn't he bother them? It's an obligation for them. They'll do it twice, and that's it. So it's not such a big bother. Elalav, it must be from our understanding of Rav Shimon Elazar that kol kuli yomim, since you always have to get up for the rabbi, for the old person, the entire day, every time you see him, even if you see him 10 times during the day. And therefore, if that's the case, since you're going to overburden the tzibur, because they're going to have to get up for you at least 10 times a day, so you should try to avoid it. That's the way we could understand Rabbi Shimon Elazar. But if it was only 2 times a day, why was Rabbi Shimon Elazar so concerned about bothering the tzibur for getting up for them? Answers the Gemara, Loi, not true. Really, you only have to get up for an old person once in the morning, once in the evening. Nevertheless, we still say to the old person, to the rabbi, as much as possible, try not to bother the tzibur, because even to bother them for once or twice is considered a bother. So if you have another way to go around, you should go around the other way without walking in front of directly the tzibur, so that they get up for you. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Lazar says, Kol Talmud Chacham, anybody who is a Talmud Chacham, she'eina oimeh b'pnei rabbi, he's not getting up for his teacher. For whatever reason, once you start learning Torah, some arrogance comes out of you, and you're not showing the proper respect for your teacher. So if you do that, and you're not getting up for your rabbi, Nikra Rasha, you're called a Rasha. You're not going to have a long life. But Talmudai Mishtakach, you're going to forget your learning. Shenema, because the pasuk says the toiv. Toiv is Torah. Loyia will not be l'rasha, for this Rasha. V'lo yarach yomim, he's not going to have a long life. Kitzel, he'll be as fleeting as a shadow. Why? What's wrong? He has what is obviously talking about somebody who learns Torah. Because he has no fear of God. So Maruzu Eini Deimao, what does it mean he has no fear of God? It must be, it's referring to this mitzvah. He's not meticulous about the mitzvah of getting up for your teacher. When the Torah says you have to fear your God, this moira means getting up. This moira that the pasuk is referring to, that if you don't get up, if you don't be meticulous about this mitzvah, you're not going to have a long life and you're going to forget your learning. Says the Gemara, maybe Mayras ribis umaras mishkalois. Maybe the Torah is maybe the pasuk is referring to not lending with interest, or the avera of not being honest in business. There also the Torah references the word fear. And maybe that's the pasuk is saying you're going to forget your learning if you're a Rasha, and you're not going to have a long life if you're not going to keep the mitzvah of ribis, or you're not going to be honest in business. How do you know specifically that pasuk Koheles was referring to not getting up for your teacher? And answers the Gemara, Blaza pnei pnei gamar. He had Gzeir Shava, pnei pnei. It says in the pasuk, any day he's not afraid lifnei alakim, and the pasuk says mipnei seva takim. So since it says pnei pnei, that the yorei alakim refers to that he was meticulous in getting up for his teacher. Now the Gemara asks a question regarding kibbud av. Abaylahu b'noi. Let's say your son, v'hu rabbi. Your son is your teacher, so your father, and your rabbi who taught you Torah was your own son. Ma'olam b'nei avid. So should the son require himself to get up for his father? Maybe because he's the rabbi, he should not be getting up for his father. It's not respectful because he's the teacher. Tashma, come in here. The Amalei Shmuel Rav Yehuda. Rav Shmuel said to Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda taught his father, as we saw in the previous Gemara. He taught his father Rav Yecheskel how to read a brisa, and he said Shmuel, who was the teacher of Rav Yehuda, told his student Rav Yehuda that for your father Shinanah, your sharp one, Kum mikamei avich, you should get up for your father. So we see that even somebody, the son who's a teacher for his own father, should be required to show respect for his father and get up for his father. So because the Shmuel said to Rav Yehuda, I know you're teaching your father, but nevertheless you should get up for your father. Says the Gemara, maybe the father of Yehuda was different. Normally, a son does not have to get up for his father if he is the teacher of his father. But if your father, Rabbi Yehuda's father, was Rabbi Yecheskel, Rabbi Yecheskel was different. The Mal Ma'asim Haba, he did a lot of many good deeds. He probably was a Gabbai in Shul or something like that, and therefore there was other reasons to show respect for this Rabbi Cheskel. Even Shmuel, the teacher of Yehuda, would get up for Rabbi Cheskel. So Rabbi Cheskel was a special person, and that's why it was required of Rabbi Yehuda to get up for his father, Rabbi Cheskel. So the Gemara says, then why did Shmuel have to tell Rabbi Yehuda to get up for him? If Rabbi Cheskel was a special person by himself, certainly Rabbi Yehuda had to get up for him. Just like Shmuel was getting up for him, certainly Rabbi Yehuda had to get up for him. So the answer is, Hachi Kamalei. This is what he told Rabbi Yehuda. Shmuel told Rabbi Yehuda, I'm teaching you and I'm facing you. Zimnin de Asum Achari. If you see behind me, Shmuel teaching you that Rabbi Cheskel is coming, Kum at mikamei, get up in front of me. Don't concern about my honor, just because although you're interrupting my learning with you by getting up, but you seeing your father from behind my back, I'm not worried about my honor. You should really be honoring your father. So the Gemara doesn't come to the conclusion. There's no answer over here. If the son is the teacher of the father, perhaps it's not respectful for the son to stand up for the father. Now the Gemara asks the reverse. The son is the teacher again. What happens should be the opposite true. Now should the father stand up for him? Should the father stand up for him? Tashma, come in here. I don't have to stand up for my son. Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi was saying that I'm the teacher of my son. And really, I don't have to stand up for my son because I'm not only his father, but I'm his teacher. But he married into the Nasi family, and therefore he has some uniqueness now attached to his name. That's why I'm standing up for my son. Tama, the whole reason is that I'm not Rabbi, because I'm his teacher. I don't have to stand up. Ha'i Rabbi, but if my son was my teacher, I would get up before him. So we see that if your son is your teacher, the father should stand up for him, because Rabbi Yehoshua excused himself and saying, because I am the teacher of my son. But if it was the other way around, I would stand up for my son. So the Gemara says, because the whole point is that there's no reason for a father to stand up for his son. For some reason, Rabbi Yehoshua is excusing himself for not standing up for his son. So basically, he's pointing out that in the normal circumstances, it's because I'm his teacher. But if I wasn't his teacher, then I would have to stand up for my son. So that's the point of Rabbi Yeshua's statement. Says the Gemara says Hachi Kama. This is what Yeshua ben Levi meant to say. Ani eini kedai lama mepnei bani. I don't have to get up for my son. Va'afili hu rabbi. Even if he was my teacher, I wouldn't have to get up for my son. Da'ana avua, because I'm his father, and a father never has to get up for a son. Al mishum kvai beis nasi, the honor of the president, because he married into the president's family, and now some titles attached to his name that he's the son-in-law of the president, and therefore I'm required to get up for even my son. But the Gemara, again, doesn't have a proof either way, whether the father has to get up for his son in case the son is his teacher. Now the question is, another question is, let's say you see your rabbi not walking, but he's on a donkey. So is that considered as if he's walking, and therefore you have to stand up for him? Or since he's sitting on the donkey, he's actually sitting, and therefore you don't have to stand up for him. The question is, Rachav kimahalach dami oilai. If the rabbi is riding a donkey, is that as if he's walking, and you would have to stand up for him? Oilai, or we consider the rabbi as sitting, because he physically is sitting, although the animal is moving, and therefore we consider him as if he's sitting, and you don't have to stand up for him. Amar Abaye says, Tashma, come in here. And this is a proof from Mishnais in the Goyim. Tama Yoshev Tachas Ilan. If a Mitzoira was sitting under a tree, the Tahar Oimid and the Tahar. Now we know that anybody who comes into the same airspace in the same house as a Mitzoira becomes Tameh. So we have a Tameh, a Mitzoira sitting under a tree, and a Tahar person comes under the tree and just stands there. Tameh, you become Tameh. The opposite, Tamei Oimitachas Ilam. Let's say the Tamei is standing under a tree, the Tar Yoshev and the Tar was sitting, Tar, then you still remain Tar. Then Yoshev Atami, but if the Tamei sat down together with the Tar under the tree, Hatar Tamei, the Tar person becomes Tamei. V'chein ve'evim hamrugas, a stone that has a nega on it, a stone that has a nega that's in somebody's pocket, right? That means if the stone is, as long as the person is moving, the tar does not become tameh. But but if the person who had the stone in the pocket actually sat down, that means that the stone in the pocket is sitting. But if the stone in the pocket is just walking along, we consider it as if the stone in the pocket is moving, and therefore, if the tar was sitting on the tree and somebody carrying a nega stone in his pocket and just walks past the tree, we consider it as if the stone never stopped for a moment. Is a clear proof. Rachiv, if you're riding on something, it's as if you're walking. Even though when you're riding on something, you're sitting, it's as if you're walking. Shmamina, that's a clear proof. Now the Gemara asks two more questions. The question is, Mahu la'ama b'nei Sefer Torah. Do you have to get up for a Sefer Torah? Rab Chilki, Rab Simon, Rab Laza, Amri Kal v'chomer. If you have to get up for your rabbi, you have to get up for a Sefer Torah. Mipnei lemdeo amdim. You get up for people who are learning Torah. You have to get up. Mipanel lo'koshkein. Certainly, you have to get up for the Sefer Torah itself. Rabbi Loi, Rabbi Yaakov, Rabbi Azavdi, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yaakov Azavdi was sitting. Chalav Ozer, Rab Shimon bar Abba coming kamei. Rab Shimon bar Abba passed by in front of them, and they got up for him. They got up for him. So Rabbi Lai and Rabbi Yaakov were sitting and learning, and Rab Shimon bar Abba passed by them, and they got up for him. They got up for Rab Shimon bar Abba. Amalahu, Rab Shimon bar Abba said, "Why did you interrupt your learning to stand up for me? You are Talmidei Chachamim, and I'm just somebody who's meticulous in mitzvahs. So I'm on a less of a level than you are. And furthermore, even if you consider me a Talmud Chacham and I'm greater than you, you're learning Torah. Why should you stand up for somebody who teaches Torah?" So the answer is that Savallah Rab Loza. They hold like Rab Loza. Rab Loza says, Ein Talmud Chacham Rashoy Lama b'nei Rabbi b'Shosh Torah. See, this Rab Shimon bar Abba held like Rab Loza, who said that if a Talmud Chacham is learning, he's not allowed to stand up for his teacher while he's learning Torah. Because if he's learning Torah himself, he has no right to show respect to a human who is a Talmud Chacham when you're actually learning the source of Torah. But Layat Allah Abaye would say a curse to somebody who paskins like Rab Loza, and he holds that even if you're learning and your teacher comes in front of you, you have to interrupt your learning and stand up for your teacher. One more point, and then we'll end. After the Hegel, Moshe moved his tent, his living quarters, away from the people. And people would watch Moshe go. They would stare at Moshe as Moshe entered his own private living quarters. So Rabbi Amma, what does it mean? They would stare at Moshe. Rabbi Yama, Rabbi Yitzchak Napcha, they had a machlokes what this meant. Some said that they were looking at Moshe in a degrading way. Some say they were looking at Moshe in a praiseworthy way. The one that said they were staring at Moshe and thinking bad thoughts, kid the Isa. We don't want to say it, but basically, as Rashi explained, they were thinking to Moshe, look how thick his feet are, his thighs are, how fat he is. He probably has a good salary, and he's taking a big hefty price for being our leader. So that's how they were looking at Moshe. Again, this was after the Egel, so they were already thinking negative. But there's another opinion, l'shavach, that they were actually staring at Moshe and thinking good thoughts. Amar Chizkiya, Amar Rab Chanina Bereit Rabo, Amar Rabo, Amar Avdim Mechaifa. This is what the pasuk is teaching you. Chacham oiver, if a chacham passes you, oimid milfanam dalar amas, when he gets into your dalar amas, you stand up for him. The came in sha'ava damal amas, if he passed from the 4 amas, Yoshev, you could sit down. Av Bezdin, the head of the court, oiver passes before you. Oimid milfanam b'loyeinav. When he comes into your eyesight, you have to stand up for him. The came in sha'ava dalar amas, when he passed by 4 amas, Yoshev, you can sit down. So that's by an Av Bezdin. So he's one step higher than a regular Talmud Chacham. Nasi, but the president of the Jewish people, the king of the Jewish people, oiver, if he passes before you, so if you have to stand up for him while he's still in your eyesight. And you can't sit down until he gets to his destination. So even if he passes your dalar amas and he's far, far away, as long as you see that he didn't stop, you're not allowed to sit down. Shnema, that's what the pasuk is saying. The Jewish people were ve'bitu acharei Moshe. They were observing Moshe, even after he passed in front of them far away. Ad boya hela, until Moshe came to his living quarters. Once he got to his living quarters and Moshe Rabbeinu sat down, then everybody else would sit down as well. So we learned the inyan today of standing up for a Talmid Chacham, somebody who's aged, somebody who's learned, and that was just the page Daf Lamed Gimel.